Here's what I've learned about getting clients in 2025, and it isn't about posting more content or DMing more people or running more ads. While those things certainly may or may not help depending on your situation, what I have found to be true are that there are some core principles, specifically what I'm talking about in today's video, 3 core principles that I've learned over the last few years that have set me up to win now, today in 2025, when it comes to getting clients. And I want to be able to share them with you in hopes that it's going to help. Now, first thing to understand is that information is a freaking commodity. I mean, there's no shortage of videos and of content and just pure information people are putting out on the internet. So gone are the days when you could just provide massive value and share how-tos or things like that on the internet in hopes that it's going to get you clients. I mean, will it surely get you 1 or 2 clients here or there? Yes, but we're living in this era where information is in abundance. People are literally overwhelmed by information. In fact, I saw a statistic recently that said there are 615 million pieces of information or content being published on the internet every minute, which is insane, okay? And so you got to understand that. And then secondly is, how are your people consuming social media? Right? How are they consuming social media? Mostly on their phones. They're sitting there scrolling on their phone on Facebook or Instagram or wherever it may be, and they are busy. They're distracted. They're just going through stuff. So if you want your content to really stand out, to really resonate with people, and to move people forward, that's a big thing. And then thirdly, there's an idea that was coined by a guy named a copywriter marketer named Eugene Schwartz, the late Eugene Schwartz. And he talks about this concept of market sophistication, which basically means that the more people are out there marketing and promoting and saying the same messages and using the same tactics and strategies, the more sophisticated that the market becomes to those messages, to those strategies, to those tactics. And so over time, things evolve. And that's kind of where we are. And so here's what's working really, really well for me, and I'm going to give this to you. So the first big thing to understand is that you've got to create demand. All right, you got to create demand for your stuff. So we're living, again, in this time where if the content itself is very commoditized, information is very commoditized. And so you want to be able to create demand for it. If you think about like any of the greatest brands and businesses of all time, they've deployed this principle, whether consciously or subconsciously, to make it work. If you think about the diamond industry, for example, if diamonds were rampant everywhere you go, diamonds would be relatively cheap. Like if I can just like walk outside right now and pick up some diamonds off of the ground, like you're not going to go to a diamond store and like, period, probably, but you're not going to go to one and expect to pay high prices, right? Because they're everywhere. And so you want to be able to create demand to drive people to good pieces of content. And so the first big thing around demand creation, and there's 2 more big things as well, but demand creation is going to be the first big one, is you want to think about how can you create less content but more quality. So here's what I mean. Like you could put time into creating a really good YouTube video, or a really good newsletter, or you can create like a monthly workshop or masterclass or training. These are things that we regularly do. And so we're putting more time into creating better pieces of content, and then we're creating content that builds demand for that one quality piece of content. Does that make sense? And so in our world, as an example, I'll host a monthly training or masterclass, right? And I go to work at creating content that has a really good hook and a really good call to action that drives traffic, that gets people intrigued and engaged to want to come see that masterclass because they know there's going to be tons of value. And so rather me just kind of like randomly posting stuff and praying that it works, right? That typical spray and pray advice that most people do is I'm creating really enticing and compelling content that I know is going to be resonant to my ideal clients, and I'm going to create demand for them to want to come consume the longer form piece of content. So building up demand. And you can use the same ideology for promoting your offers, or if you wanted to host a challenge or a workshop, or if you wanted to get people to watch a YouTube video. That you use all of these things here, and then you can then leverage like your social media, your email list, and things like that. And typically a good length of time to really build up demand is for like a training or a masterclass or like a video, usually like 3 to 7 days. is a decent amount of time to really promote that stuff. If it's something like an offer or you're trying to build like a wait list, or you're really wanting to get a lot of people enrolled into your program, you typically want to give at least like a 14-day window to really be able to build up demand and use really intriguing content and compelling content to get people to come watch. And what makes it compelling are typically great hooks, great story, and great call to actions. So that's the first big thing, creating demand. The second thing is going to be around authenticity, around how you're sharing your story or stories, and even client stories, to be able to do a couple things. Number one is to be able to connect with the audience, right? There's nothing unique about sharing like a how-to video, right? But there is something unique about sharing a story to be able to connect with people. You want to be able to create stories that captivate people's attention. And then you want to be able to use your stories to be able to bridge the gap between where people are struggling and the transformation that people want to be at. Your people want to be at, your ideal clients. That's absolutely key, right? And then the real big key here is being able to infuse that into your content. So instead of just sharing basic how-to stuff like how to lose 10 pounds or how to get clients, it's infusing actual storytelling into this, right? And I think one of the number, I would say probably the most powerful insight that I've had around this is in two different ways. Firstly, I remember going onto the show American Ninja Warrior. Like, I'd been trying for freaking years and years and years to get onto the show, and I was just, it wasn't happening. I kept getting denied. And then one day I had a shot, okay? And I was able to talk to a producer, one of the head producers on the show. And I was like, dude, how do I get onto the show? Like, because if you don't know, for the context here is you got to submit a 3-minute video that outlines shows your skill sets, shows that you have energy to be on TV, and then shows your story. And he was like, dude, if you put more time into really coming up with a great story, it's gonna basically sell people on, like, the producers and essentially America, on why you should be on the show. And so I was like, huh. So I remember going and trying it in a piece of content. Like, at the time I was struggling. I was doing okay, like, revenue wise. At the time for me it was okay. I was bouncing between like $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 per month. And but it was super inconsistent. Like, most of my content would get some engagement, but I wasn't consistently getting like high quality leads, and I wasn't consistently filling up my calendar with calls. I wasn't getting clients on a regular basis. And so one day I decided to use part of the demand creation principles that I was just sharing, and creating a post that had a good hook, that shared my story, and had a good call to action. And I woke up the next morning and I had hundreds of notifications. And I had about 12 to 13 inbound leads, like people that DM'd me, that were asking me information. And that's when I was like, it really clicked. I was like, damn. So if you really share something that helps other people bridge the gap, A, it makes your stuff more unique, and B, it inspires people and gives them hope, and it helps them see how possibly they can do it as well. And so the key with a really good story is, A, it doesn't have to be an extraordinary story. In fact, the more ordinary the story, typically the better it's going to be, because people can relate to it. They can find it resonates more and is more relevant to them. So it should always be a story around that. And there's different types of stories you could share. There's just like personal stories that happen, right? There could be like the kind of I'll call it like a backstory, like why you're doing what you're doing, why you're teaching the way you're teaching. There's probably a way that you figured it out, right? I remember when I was a firefighter, I was 53 pounds overweight. I got electrocuted. I was basically injured on the job. And that's a story for another day. And, I went through this bout to try to lose weight. And during that time, I was like trying everything under the sun. I was eating cans of tuna. I was running around my fire station. I was like basically trying to diet and do cardio, right? And I discovered when I was Googling online, I found this like thing that was called carb backloading. So I tried carb backloading, and all of this stuff. Basically, I'm sharing my story, right, on how I did it. And it's not super extraordinary. It's basically an ordinary story that a lot of people go through. And I showed people how I was able to discover the methodologies that I taught within my fitness business back then, right? And so that's the second big thing. So the first is building demand. The second is going to be around authenticity and sharing your stories. And aligned with that, really making sure that you're speaking more to your values, your beliefs, what you stand against, what you stand for, and that stuff as well. And then thirdly is going to be around shifting people's perspectives, shifting people's beliefs around the commonly held misconceptions that they have within your industry or within your niche specific, around maybe mistakes that they're making, like wrongful actions that they're taking to try to solve their problem. Like in my case, I shared at the beginning of the video, people are trying to just post more content. They're DMing more people. They're just basically trying to apply more volume to something that's not already working. And then what are some of the maybe limiting beliefs and or objections that are holding your people back from actually getting results? When you can create content that really challenges their thinking and that essentially positions you as the thought leader. Because if you think about it, pun intended, there is a great book called Think and Grow Rich. And in the book, at least I'm paraphrasing here, this is to my memory, it's been a while, but there's the paradigm to where our identity basically forms our beliefs, and our beliefs form our thinking then causes some kind of emotional state, and that dictates our actions that we take, which yield our results, right? And so if you're just trying to say in weight loss, you're like, hey, I want to just help you. I'm going to show you how to, eat a flexible dieting plan and work out. You're just trying to help change people's actions, right? But the thing here is you're not hitting on the most important part of that paradigm, right? Which is challenging their thinking and their beliefs. Because if we want to be able to get the closest to challenging their identity, which we'll get into in just a second, we got to hit the beliefs. We got to at least plant the seed that there is a core belief that they need to believe in order to get the results that they want. So for example, when I was back in the fitness industry and I was helping people lose weight, a core belief that I got them to believe was it wasn't about dieting. It wasn't about eating healthy. It was about eating right. And so when I got them to believe that they had to eat right, which I explained back in my marketing what that meant for them, then all of a sudden they were like, well, how? Right? And I was like, oh, well, let's chat about it. We'll discover how. So it's challenging their belief. Like what I do a lot of my business now, so you can see another kind of example of this, is most people that I serve and that I help, they have inconsistent revenue. They're maybe stuck at a certain revenue plateau, whether it's 10K, 20K, 80K. They're stuck somewhere and they're not getting the same results. It's super inconsistent. It's unpredictable. And so I show them two things, right? And I have to get them to believe that their messaging is absolutely the most important thing, right? As soon as somebody gets to a certain threshold, they have to position themselves better. They have to make sure they're saying the right words, and they have to position themselves as unique. That's the first belief that I know people need to believe in my audience. The second is they need to have the right systems in place. Because if people want predictability, I've got to get them to believe the truth is that they have to have systems, right? The right systems. And so a lot of my content goes to getting people to believe what I believe to be true so that they can get the same results that I have gotten. You see what I'm saying? And so that's absolutely key as well. And then on the opposing side of this is we want to be able to really have some kind of unique approach, right? So around getting people to believe something new, as Russell Brunson talks about in his book, Expert Secrets, I believe, he calls it a new opportunity, right? And with a new opportunity, I call it basically a unique mechanism to where you got to have something that's a little bit different that intrigues people. And so for me in my fitness business, this was like the Stubborn Fat Solution, or I had what was called the Flex Fuel Nutrition regimen, right? In my business now, I teach what we call our magic messaging framework. I have our strategic content ecosystem. I have our client attraction systems. I have many different things nowadays, right? But I have some unique mechanisms where I show people how to then go from the new belief that they are at least, entertaining to how they actually get results with it, right? And so basically, once you know what that core belief that you want to shift, then maybe there's 1, 2, or 3 core beliefs you need to shift within your audience, and then you got to plant the seeds of the new belief and or 1, 2, or 3 beliefs, and then how they do it is through your unique mechanism, right? So instead of me teaching somebody flexible nutrition, I just put a name on it, right? Instead of me teaching just strength training, I called it metabolic intensity training. Instead of me just telling somebody I'm going to fix their messaging for them, I came up with my own process, right? And it's called magic messaging. Instead of me saying like, hey, I'm going to strategically distribute your content for you, I show people it's our strategic content ecosystem, right? So it's just putting your own unique spin on these things. So that is how, at least I have gone about getting clients. What I've learned to be the most impactful things for me, and that comes around creating demand, right? Less content, more quality, and then creating content with good hooks, good story, good call to action to build demand for longer form pieces of content, or promotions or offers. Secondly, it's around authenticity, around sharing your story and or stories and client stories within your content to really be able to help connect with people, captivate people, and bridge the gap from struggle to transformation. And then thirdly, it's around shifting people's perspectives and then having some kind of unique mechanism that you can present to them for them to be able to have hope, inspire them to take the action so that you can solve their problems, change their lives, and make some more money in your business. So I hope you found these helpful. If you did, make sure to click subscribe. And I would love to hear your biggest takeaway. Leave a comment down below and let me know. As always, remember your message matters now more than ever has before. Don't be afraid to speak it. As always, be seen, be heard, and be impactful.